This is Present Politics, hosted by leading political strategist Rashad Ritchie and civil rights attorney Robert Patillo. Listen as they interview trendsetters and newsmakers, both local and national. This is our time to talk about political issues that matter to us. Guaranteed to be controversial and always informative. Join us every Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. only on Love 860 WAEC, Atlanta's inspirational talk radio. You can also listen online at presentpolitics.com.
Good afternoon. Happy Saturday to everybody listening to Present Politics Live on Love 860 AM WAEC. Follow us on presentpolitics.com, facebook.com/presentpolitics, Twitter @presentpolitics. We are out there. Make sure you call in. Phone number is 404-355-8699. I'm your host, Robert Patillo. Our other host, Rashad Rich, is on the way to the studio. He'll be here in a couple minutes. But right now, we're going to be talking about the Smyrna Braves. Sounds good to you, doesn't it? The Marietta Braves. The Cobb County Braves. What happened? What happened where now sports teams can hold entire cities ransom? That's legitimately what is taking place now. That at this current time, at this moment, sports teams have more leverage than school children. Sports teams have more power, more negotiating might than labor unions or teachers or workers. Sports teams can hold entire cities hostage for new stadiums. And if they don't give it to them, they will move. They'll find another sucker. They'll find another chump who's willing to mortgage away their city's future in order to appease these corporate giants. So let's think about what happened. Let's think about the package that took place. And actually, for once, I'm going to really commend Mayor Reed on his stance, which was that we are not going to negotiate with hostage takers, that no, the city will not invest $300 million, $450 million in keeping the Braves. They can move 12 miles away and we'll just commute up there. I commend him for that stance, because for the people who don't who need a refresher on exactly what's going on, because we have listeners not just here in Atlanta, we have listeners all the way in Toronto and London and the Caribbean, worldwide. The Atlanta Braves baseball team, 1995 World Series champion Atlanta Braves baseball team, had decided to move from downtown Atlanta to Cobb County, right at the intersection of I-75 and I-285, about 12 miles from their current location. I know that may not sound like much. Okay, they moved 12 miles. What's the difference? Well, the reason it's an issue is because 20 years ago, they pulled a hoodwink. They pulled a bamboozle. 20 years ago, the Braves were in Fulton County Stadium. That's where they won their World Series in 1995. And it was an older stadium, about 40 years old. And after the Olympics were over, the 1996 Olympics, they converted the Centennial Olympic Stadium into Turner Field. They basically knocked down the back wall, closed it in, and changed it from a Olympic-sized stadium into a baseball stadium. And when Andrew Young and when the business leaders, when they decided that they were going to bring the Olympics, they were going to fight to bring the Olympics to Atlanta, the way they sold the city and residents on building a stadium right there in the middle of the Pittsburgh community near Mechanicsville, near Cabbagetown, and one of the poorer parts of the city, they said that by putting these things there, it will bring commerce. It will bring economic stimulus to the entire area. It will bring jobs. It would uplift home values. It would allow more people access to the American dream. All you have to do is let us blow up half of your community, put a lot of people on buses and send them to the suburbs. Then we're going to put a giant stadium there. You have to deal with traffic jams. You have to deal with all of the ancillary consequences of having a stadium. But as a benefit of that, for sacrificing that, you get access to all these jobs and economic opportunities. So what happened? They built the stadium. We had the Olympics. The Braves have been there for 20 years. If you go 2 blocks away from the Braves Stadium, you are in abject poverty. You're still in the middle of the ghetto. You're still in the middle of the hood, the deepest part of the hood. You can't walk a mile from the Braves Stadium at night. It's dangerous. So what happened? What happened to the economic uplift that would take place because of all the money we invested, because of the blood, sweat, and tears that the community was putting into having a Brave Stadium? What happened to it? Well, this is what happened. They invested in the stadium, they invested in the team, but they did not invest in the community. If you go to other cities around the country, and I've been to baseball games, if you can't tell, I'm a huge baseball fan, always have been. But you go to a game at Wrigley Field in Chicago. I went to law school in Chicago, and you don't even have to go inside of the game to have a good time. You walk up and down the street. There are piano bars. There are parties. They shut down everything. There are everything you could want. It's like a carnival every single time there's a home game. You go to the old Yankee Stadium. I haven't been to the new Yankee Stadium. You go to the old Yankee Stadium. It is an experience. The whole community is alive. It's vibrant. You come to a Braves game, you just try to run from your car into the stadium as fast as you can and hope nobody begs you for money or drags you off. And the reason for this is that we put the money into building these stadiums, but we don't put the money into building the communities around it. And that was supposed to be the responsibility of the teams. The team, by getting the semi-taxpayer funded stadium, is supposed to then go out and attract businesses in the area. They're supposed to put a product on the field, and they're supposed to use their business savvy to bring in hotels, to bring in restaurants, to bring in all these other businesses to spur the economy. And because of that raises property values by having all these new things around. By raising that property value, you change the demographics, you get better schools, and the money that you invest into the stadium reinvest itself into the community. So the city and that community, by sacrificing, then they are able to recoup that money tenfold. Or at least that's the theory. That's the theory of stadium politics. So what happened with the Braves? We put the money into the stadium. It's a beautiful stadium. You go to Turner Field right now. They just put in a gigantic jumbotron a couple seasons ago. No, they've modernized it. It's a great place to watch a game. But a couple things. They never put the money into cleaning up the area. They never, right now, the way they originally imagined it, Turner Field was supposed to be the center of almost an Atlantic Station type of hexagon city. It was supposed to be the center of an entertainment district where you could go to a Braves game and then walk to a movie theater, then go to a restaurant and then take your children over to the zoo, then hop on a trolley and go to Centennial Park, go to the CNN Center, visit the King Center, see the aquarium, and it was part of this entire entertainment system that was going to be in place. But the team said, no, we're keeping our money. We're going to keep our money. And unless you give us $250 million more dollars, and that's what the Braves wanted. They wanted $250 million from the city to improve Turner Field. Now, some of it, of course, was needed maintenance and non-fan experience related, just upkeep. Okay, $100 million for that. Understandable. We don't want the thing to collapse. But then they wanted creative control over the redevelopment of the area around Turner Field. They basically wanted to create a Vichy, a pseudo-government controlled by the owners of the Braves that could tell developers what gets developed, who gets to live here, who doesn't, who gets moved out, who gets shipped off to the suburbs. They want to be making those decisions from the press box, from the executive suite in Turner Field. They want to be affecting the lives of all of the people in these communities just in order to make the most money for themselves. And pretty much they told the city that if they couldn't get the $250 million they needed and the control over the redevelopment of the community and a whole other list of ransom items, then they would go. They were gone. They're going to take their ball and run away. They did the exact same thing that they just saw the Falcons do and work. This is why you always have to have the philosophy that I don't negotiate with terrorists. Now, I'm not calling these sports teams terrorists. I'm calling them hostage takers, because when you negotiate with one, you motivate the next. Anybody in Atlanta will tell you there's nothing wrong with the Georgia Dome. We could keep the Georgia Dome for another 20 years. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a completely fine venue. You can go there. You can watch a Falcons game. So we're going to be investing $200 million of city money into it. We should be investing that into the English Avenue community. We need to be investing that $200 million that mysteriously appears whenever we need a stadium into building better roads, better transportation, modernizing MARTA. That's the public policy issue here of how do we spend our public monies? Do we spend it to get these teams these luxury items, or do we spend it to bring up the communities around the stadium so that then they see more benefit? And the same thing with Turner Field. The city finally made the decision that we can't give you $250 million more dollars. You have a stadium. We need to spend this $250 million to get people to your stadium. We can spend $250 million to make the area around your stadium safer. But no, what did the Braves say? They said either we get our money or we're taking our ball and we're going home. And that's what they did. They took it right up to Cobb County, right up, and now this creates an entire different list of issues. This creates an entire new subset of challenges for the area. Because after spending all this money to build Turner Field, to clear out the area, now the city is going to have to find a way to demolish the stadium and then rebuild the community around it. So this concept, this footprint that these sports teams put on cities, and then their ability, as soon as the lease is up, as soon as the contract is up, to just get up and run if they don't get exactly what they want, exactly when they want it, and exactly how they want it, I think cities are going to have to re-examine this. Because clearly these teams have no allegiance. They don't care. As long as it doesn't benefit their bottom line, they're gone. What are you going to do about it? Either you give us our money or we'll find someone else to give us our money. Right now, Cobb County is going to be spending $300 million. And this is conservative Cobb County. This is Cobb County where, this is Tea Party headquarters. This is the same Cobb County that claims fiscal responsibility and saving dimes and never raising taxes. They're going to be spending $300 million on a baseball stadium. There's going to be spending, current estimates are between 40 and 45% of the cost of the new stadium is going to be financed by Cobb County. That's one of the greatest deals in the country. Think about it this way. The Falcon Stadium costs $1.2 billion. And the city of Atlanta is only kicking in $200 million of that $1.2 billion. The Brave Stadium is going to cost $675-ish million, and Cobb County is kicking in $300. That's nearly half. And initially, they even talked about kicking in $450 million. So when you get a deal that sweet as the Braves, and you get to just leave all of the destruction that the stadium is causing, leave this huge, if there's no baseball being played in it, just urban blight there, and then just get up and go every 20 years, what incentive do you have to stay? We're going to talk about this after the break. We're going to throw the break. We need your calls, 404-355-8699. I'm your host, Robert Patillo, here on President Politics on WAEC. Love 860 AM. See you after the break.
Hello, this is Aaron Watson, your Atlanta City Council member, Post 2 at Large, encouraging you to register for Atlanta's Cry Wolf false alarm system. It is a free program aimed at reducing false burglary and security alarms at your home and business. When there's a false alarm and Atlanta police respond, they are pulled away from true emergencies. When you register with Cry Wolf, you are saving yourself from paying fines up to $150, and you are keeping our police focused on fighting crime. This is your Atlanta City Council member, Aaron Watson, reminding you to register online at crywolf.us/AtlantaGA or call 1-855-725-7102.
The lawyers of Johnson, Hopewell, Coleman offer the quality, experience, and expertise of a big firm, but with the personalized, client-centered approach to legal services that only a smaller firm can offer. Practice areas include personal injury, auto accidents, slip and fall, and negligent security, plus on-the-job injury, bankruptcy, family law, business and corporate law, wills and estates, and charter schools. Call today to see why Johnson, Hopewell, Coleman should be your one-stop law shop for all of your business and personal needs. Conveniently located in Decatur, within 5 miles of both 285 and I-20. Call and schedule an appointment right now. 404-289-2244. 404-289-2244. Or go online to jhclawyers.com. The hiring of an attorney is an important decision that should not be based solely upon advertising. Ask for free written information about the firm's qualifications and experience.
You've seen the Total Gym on TV for years. Total Gym is the all-in-one fitness solution designed to help you reach your fitness goals quickly. Top celebrities like Chuck Norris and Christy Brinkley rely on the Total Gym to keep in shape. And now you can try the Total Gym 30 days risk-free for just $49.95. $49.95. With the Total Gym, you can work out all major muscle groups, even cardio exercises with one machine, all in the comfort of your own home. And when you're done, you can fold the Total Gym up and slide it under your bed. Now you can get in the best shape of your life, like Chuck Norris and Christy Brinkley have with the Total Gym. Call now for your 30-day risk-free trial offer. Call now for free shipping.
800-291-2072, 800-291-2072, 800-291-2072, 800-291-2072.
We are back. Present Politics, live on Lubbock, 60 AM WAEC. Call in 404-355-8699. Again, it's 404-355-8699. Join the conversation. Remember, you can always follow us at presentpolitics.com, facebook.com/presentpolitics, Twitter @presentpolitics. And we're talking about the Braves Stadium. And not just the Braves Stadium, but the public financing of municipal stadiums, the sports arenas, the morality of that, the ability of these teams pretty much to cause cities to make these humongous capital investments and then leave them holding the bag after 20 years or whenever the lease is up, unless they basically capitulate to any demand that they have. Because remember, the Braves left over $200 million. Basically, they wanted a little more, a little less. They want the city to kick in $200 million into a new stadium before they would sign a new lease. And they wanted control over the redevelopment of the area surrounding Turner Field. That's what they wanted. Cobb County offered them $300 to $400 million, and they bolted. Now, if at the time that we built Turner Field, what if we had known then? What if we had known at that time that after 20 years they will be bolting with all the money that we put into the stadium and all the money we put into that community? What else could we have done with it? What if we had just taken whatever money we put into Turner Field and put it into MARTA 20 years ago? We would have probably another train line headed out to one of these areas that need it. Anyone who's been to Atlanta or lives in Atlanta knows that the problem with MARTA isn't the service itself. The MARTA trains are fine. It's one of the more efficient cities in the country once you get onto the train. The problem is the train doesn't go anywhere. That when you get on, you can either go straight up or up and then east or up and then west. There's no you can't go diagonally on MARTA. So if we had put $200 million or more into going diagonally on MARTA, how much would that have affected the city? How much more money would that have brought the city? How much more commerce would it have brought the city to have an efficient transportation system? What if we had put that money into roads? What if we had put all the money we put into the Braves Stadium and into the Georgia Dome? What if we had put that into I-85 or the Grady the Grady Curve? What if we had put into that to ameliorate the traffic situation? What if we had invested in light rail so that instead of having to drive into the city from the southern suburbs, you could actually just hop on a commuter train? And, this is insane to my friends from other cities, that Atlanta, as a major or quote unquote major city, doesn't have commuter trains. When I lived in Chicago, you could hop on a train in Wisconsin. You could hop on a train in Milwaukee and be in downtown Chicago in an hour for like $5. You can hop on a train in Chicago and be in Indianapolis in a couple hours, like $10. You could just zoom all around the Midwest. And then if it was too far for the trains you hop on, like Megabus or something like that, and go to Chicago to Detroit, $10. You can't do that in Atlanta. If you're in Atlanta and you need to be in Charlotte, you got one option. You got two options. No, three. You have three options. You can either drive. That's going to be a couple tanks of gas. You can take Greyhound. Well, nobody wants to take Greyhound. Or you can fly, which is going to be expensive. So there's no reasonable transportation alternative. You don't think we could have taken what we invested in the Georgia Dome and what we invested in Turner Field and upkeep of Fulton County Stadium back before that? Well, we had invested that in transportation. But no, we invested it into our sports teams. And God bless them. I love having the Falcons. I love having the Braves. But at what cost? And we're going to be right back in this same situation in 20 years. Because we're building the new Georgia Dome, the new Stankonia Dome, the new Falcon Stadium, whatever you want to call it. But there's no guarantee they're going to stay there past their lease. I think they're signing a either 30 or 35-year lease in the new Falcon Stadium. So for $200 million, we get to rent the Falcons for 30 years. Now, over the course of 30 years, how much money are they going to generate versus what will be generated by investing this money other places? And I'd like to mention, back in 2012, I was running for state representative, and the big thing on the ballot was the T-SPLOST, the Transportation Special Local Option Sales Tax. I think that's the acronym, might be in a different order. But you get the idea. It was a sales tax that was supposed to put money into the transportation system. It was broken up by region, and it was going to cost an extra penny on the dollar. And in this extra sales tax would go into all of these plans and these designs. It was going to get $1 billion, and then we'd be eligible for federal matching funds and this, that, and the other. And the city said, and the state said that there was no other way for us to get this money. We don't have an option. There is no plan B. There's no more money. Everything is laid bare. Falcons win a stadium. Oh, we got $200 million. Like, well, where'd you get $200 million from? Hotel motel tax. Well, then why didn't we use the hotel motel tax for transportation? Does that make sense to anyone? That all of a sudden, when we want to keep a sports team, we want to line Arthur Blank's pockets. We just all of a sudden just show up with more money. We all of a sudden just pull money out of the air. It just starts falling out of the trees. But when it's time to invest in transportation, who do we go to? What is a sales tax? It's a regressive tax. It's a tax on poor people. And this is what I want people to understand. When you see these referendums, these initiatives that want to quote unquote do a penny tax, it's just a penny. It affects poor people more than anyone else because poor people spend a higher percentage of their income on taxable goods and on sales taxable goods. When you're in the middle class, when you're in the upper middle class, most of your stuff is coming from Amazon, from eBay. You're buying online. You're making large purchases. You're not spending your money nickel and dime. So the penny tax doesn't affect you the same way percentage-wise as it does someone at a lower economic rung. So when it comes to investing in city necessities, we want poor people to pay for it. But when it comes to investing in sports and entertainment and things such as this, we'll find money somewhere else. Oh, please believe. So Cobb County now, fiscally conservative Cobb County, had to find out a way to get $300 million without, quote unquote, raising taxes. Because as a Republican, you signed the Grover Norquist Pledge. And the Grover Norquist Pledge is to never raise taxes on anything for any reason. Do you understand that? That as a Republican now, in order to get elected, you sign this pledge that you will never, ever, you will never raise taxes for any reason. So as a Republican lawmaker, as a county commissioner, as a city council person, you're between a rock and a hard place because you really want a Braves stadium. You want a baseball team locally. You want the Smyrna Braves to be playing in your backyard. But what you don't want to do is raise taxes, because if you raise property taxes, if you raise sales taxes, you're going to have homeowners lose their mind. They're going to flip out. They're going to be marching. You're going to have a Tea Party primary opponent, and you might lose your seat. So what's your choice? Hotel motel tax. It's a tax that isn't on the residents of your district. It's a tax that's on individuals who stay in hotels and motels and other travel lodges and so on within your jurisdiction. So you come into travel, you stay in a hotel, and, you have your nightly rate, and then you just have a whole bunch of surcharges. That's why when you stay in a hotel and it says $49.99 a night, you end up paying $60 because of these taxes. Because you know what? Screw you. You're not going to be around to vote. You're going to be gone. Screw you. Man, if we're going to make the hotel motel tax whatever the heck we feel like, I'll raise it on up. Every time we think of something from now on, we're just going to say hotel motel tax. Like, well, you want a new trolley car, hotel motel tax. Just what are they going to do? They don't get to vote here. But for some reason, we can't use that when we have necessities like education or books or roads or transportation or feeding the homeless or feeding the poor or helping the elderly. But if you need a stadium, hotel motel tax. Also, rental car tax. This is why when you get a rental car and it says, that the daily rate will be $29 a day, that turns out being $50 a day or wherever the math works out to. Because, again, you're transient. Normally, people who live in the city aren't using rental cars that much. So you tack on the tax there. You do a bond referendum. You get some private investors to kick in some money, and boom, you've got your $200 million. You've got your $300 million. But what does it get you? It gets you a short-term lease on a baseball team. It gets you a short-term investment, short-term stability. Because if you're going to be investing $300 million of public money, shouldn't there be some assurance that the team's not going to abandon you? That you're not going to be sitting there with this just big empty stadium in the middle of your city. And, every time they try to sell us on these stadiums, every time they try to sell us on this idea that these teams are going to be bringing this economic value to you, they tell you about all the other things that can take place there. Like, well, we can have concerts and we can have rallies and Final Fours. No. Do you know why? Because when the team is gone, those things are going to go to the cool new venue. It's all about newness. Nobody wants to go to the old thing. Nobody wants to go to the unused stadium. It's going to look like Life After People. And I did find this to be great when the stadium got announced, which was conveniently announced a couple days after the election. It was conveniently announced a couple days after Kasim locked up that re-election. I'm sure that was just a coincidence. No one knew that was going to happen. 3 days after you're elected, all of a sudden, we decided to move. There's no way that decision was made weeks ago and just announced to the public after the election for political reasons. I would never say anything like that. That would be crazy. We all know what happened. That they knew they couldn't get the deal done to stay in Atlanta, but they did agree that we won't screw you over for your re-election, so we announced it after the election. But then immediately after, Kasim announces that we're going to build a middle-class paradise. What is a middle-class paradise? What exactly is that going to be? What are the contours of that? Can you give us any specifics? And then even in the press conference that he did afterwards, he gave no specifics on who's going to finance this middle-class paradise. Says they're going to bulldoze the stadium, and then they're going to start building stuff. And he said Atlantic Station is an example of a upper class paradise. So it would be a rung lower than Atlantic Station. So the only thing I can think of is maybe there'll be a Family Dollar there, Piggly Wiggly, couple chitlin joints. I'm not quite sure I don't know what the vision is. I think that when they asked him, he had no idea what to say. And he just had to make something up. You just make something up right there on the spot, right there on a dime. You just say, we're going to build a middle-class paradise. Yeah, sure, that works. Because you have to remember, we're still not done demolishing Fulton County Stadium. The parking lot right now for Turner Field is the old Fulton County Stadium. We have acres of just empty asphalt that's used for Braves parking, and the rest of the year is just empty space. So we're going to have to redevelop all of that when the Braves move in 2017. We're going to have to find a way to not just rebuild all the damage that's been done by the stadium. We have to rebuild all of that empty space and bring in commerce and bring in transportation and bring in some way to increase the standard of living there. Are we going to use the $200 million we saved by not keeping the Braves for that? I don't think so. Because for some reason, whenever it comes to the poor, we're out of money. We're just broke. We don't have anything to do, and we have no hope for changing it. So I want you guys to call in. We're going to go to break. I want you guys to call in, get involved in the conversation. 404-355-8699. I want to make sure that we have everyone. We want to get all of your input. We listen to Present Politics on Love 860 AM WAEC. Your host, Robert Patillo. Call in.
The lawyers of Johnson, Hopewell, Coleman offer the quality, experience, and expertise of a big firm, but with the personalized, client-centered approach to legal services that only a smaller firm can offer. Practice areas include personal injury, auto accidents, slip and fall, and negligent security, plus on-the-job injury, bankruptcy, family law, business and corporate law, wills and estates, and charter schools. Call today to see why Johnson, Hopewell, Coleman should be your one-stop law shop for all of your business and personal needs. Conveniently located in Decatur, within 5 miles of both 285 and I-20. Call and schedule an appointment right now. 404-289-2244. 404-289-2244. Or go online to jhclawyers.com. The hiring of an attorney is an important decision that should not be based solely upon advertising. Ask for free written information about the firm's qualifications and experience.
Hello, this is Aaron Watson, your Atlanta City Council member, Post 2 at Large, encouraging you to register for Atlanta's Cry Wolf false alarm system. It is a free program aimed at reducing false burglary and security alarms at your home and business. When there's a false alarm and Atlanta police respond, they are pulled away from true emergencies. When you register with Cry Wolf, you are saving yourself from paying fines up to $150, and you are keeping our police focused on fighting crime. This is your Atlanta City Council member, Aaron Watson, reminding you to register online at crywolf.us/AtlantaGA or call 1-855-725-7102.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Abrams. The lives of ordinary people are ensnared in a web of intrigue, and it all starts with rumors in my new novel. The story is fast-paced and draws the reader into the characters' experiences as secrets, lies, and conspiracies grow from rumors and create chaos in a quiet suburban community. Rumors, your perfect leisure time companion.
Rumors by Stephanie Abrams. Visit Amazon.com, where Rumors is available in print and Kindle formats, BarnesandNoble.com, and Exlibris.com in print and ebooks. Or go to sabrams.com/rumors to click right through. sabrams.com/rumors.
Rumors by Stephanie Abrams. That would be me.
Good afternoon and welcome back. Present Politics Live on Love 860 AM. I'm your host, Robert Patillo. Listen to WAEC. Call in 404-355-8699. You know, the chat room, the Facebook group are all blowing up. You got to follow us online. www.facebook.com/presentpolitics or presentpolitics.com. Mainly our comments are about people watching The Best Man holiday last night. Apparently everyone went to the movies. Everyone went to the movies. If you have not seen it, you are completely left out and you do not love your girlfriend or wife. You should have seen it already. And, you know, if you're married and you haven't seen it, your wife is at the movies right now seeing it without you. and probably with her new boyfriend who's going to replace you. Now, I'm just saying, you got to put that work in. You got to take your woman to the movies. You got to make sure she's happy. Back on subject, back on our topic, back to the Braves. This is gonna be our last segment on this, and I do want you guys to call in and get involved, get into the conversation. 404-355-8699. But what should the voters do? What should the taxpayers do? We elect people. We put them in charge of stewarding our money, because that's really what politics is about. The definition of politics is who gets what when. If you want to go into a master's level of politics, of political science, it's who gets what when, where, and most importantly, how. Because with politics, you're dealing with the allocation of sparse resources. You have resources that are community resources that we work for as a group. And then as a polity, we elect leaders. And we entrust into them the stewardship of the community's goods, of what we've produced, of our GDP. Think back to the tribal days. Think back to when we were in small hunter-gatherer bands. We all go out and hunt. I bring back an elk. Someone else brings back a gazelle. The gatherers, they go get nuts and berries. And so we have all this stuff, but it's sparse. It's finite. We've had to work to get this that we have. We've had to put in full days of labor in order to get the things that we have and what we need. And so we elect a leader who will fairly distribute these things among everyone so that not one person has it all and not one person is starving to death. It's about the allocation of community resources. And we have to trust in them to make those right decisions. We have to trust in them to allocate those resources in a way that helps the most people. But far too often, this isn't what people are doing. Far too often we elect these people and the money just disappears. The money just goes away. The money is nowhere to be seen. Now we have one of my good friends on the line. We have Daniel Blackman. Daniel, you there?
Hey, I'm here, Robert. It's good to hear from you.
Oh, good to hear from you too. We're talking about this Brave Stadium today. It grinds my gears that for some reason, whenever it's time to pay for a stadium, money appears. But when it's time for roads or education or the environment, we're broke. We know we're all fiscal conservatives. There's no way we're going to get this money when we need it. But when it's time for a stadium or for a baseball team, we got it. What do you think about it?
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. Unfortunately, we in Atlanta have had an issue ever since, at least I've been here pre-Olympics, post-Olympics, and, I've seen the empowerment zones and the tax allocation districts and the furlough days with our teachers. And quite frankly, I think if you're a tax-paying citizen in Georgia, you should be fed up with it. If we're not investing, like you said, into our infrastructure, into our roads and our transportation systems, MARTA is the ninth largest transit system in the United States, and it's the only transit system in a major metropolitan region that's not state-funded. You look at the conditions that many of us here in Atlanta, many of the people that we serve, they're living in or under poverty, and we're finding money, like you said, to build entertainment facilities for entertainment, but not for education. I think it's unfortunate because at the end of the day, it should be about making Georgia a smarter, more prepared, more prosperous state, and not about just winning a championship. Winning games, that's great. Looking good when you win games, that's great. But making sure we have an educated electorate and an educated community means even more, at least in my book.
You're exactly right. But I think one of the problems is that, poor people aren't really big political contributors. Yeah. It's very hard to get someone who's, riding MARTA to go to a black tie fundraiser at the governor's mansion. So the people who are in power, the Arthur Blanks of the world, the ownership group of the Braves, these people, they can sit down and have a one-on-one meeting with the mayor, the governor, whoever else, because they control the money. You remember when they were talking about the Brave Stadium, the commissioner, Roger Goodell, came down and met with Kasim and the governor and Arthur Blank in order to figure out how they were going to divvy up this money. So what are we going to do when we don't have that kind of power? When the people who are on the lower rungs don't have that kind of power, what are we going to do to at least have some voice in this?
Well, I think, what it comes down to is people like you who has a very relevant voice, making sure that we discuss it, but we've got to get past in Atlanta, it's a old cliche of, we know how to celebrate and complain in Atlanta. And we've got to get past, celebrating, and that's not to say that being in a historic city and the bedrock of the civil rights movement, it does not mean that we should not continue to honor the legacies that have gone on and, really celebrate the legacy that we do have here in Atlanta and in the state of Georgia and throughout the South. But I think more importantly, we've got to make sure that we don't lose sight of the missions and the objectives of what we're celebrating. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. A month and a half from now, we'll be celebrating all over Atlanta the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and what he meant to this city. But unless we're doing what Martin Luther King said in Memphis about economic rights, and he spoke about it at Riverside Church, he spoke about it in many of his speeches that we rarely make mention to, if we're not talking about economic rights and, closing the achievement gap and looking at making sure that communities are being rebuilt. I love and appreciate many things that the mayor has done, but I have to disagree because I'm not sure if you caught it on the interview he did post the announcement of the Braves moving, but he made mention of building the thriving middle class, epicenter of Atlanta and of this region. And I think it's very unfortunate that people in Vine City and English Avenue will be displaced because of the Falcon Stadium, which we know what will happen. Gentrification is very real, and it has happened for decades here in Atlanta. But also, now we're looking at the areas that are surrounding the Braves Stadium. I mean, there are whites, there are blacks, there are many different cultures and groups of people that have moved into there with the expectation of the Braves facility building up the community, and now those people may not be able to afford to live there once this thriving new economy emerges. And I think we have to be very particular and careful on when we build new infrastructure in new places, not pushing out the very essence of this city, which is the people.
You're exactly right. I always love the insightful words coming from you. And for those of you who don't know, you can follow Daniel Blackman, DanielBlackman.com. Daniel Blackman is a community activist. He is an environmental activist. He is a watchdog. He is always watching taxpayer money. He's always looking out for the best interest of the community, and he's absolutely great, not even public servant because he's not elected. He's just someone who really cares passionately about these issues. Thank you so much for calling in, Daniel. It's always great to have you on the line.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks. All right, on the phone we have George Sheedy, the newly elected George Sheedy. Never thought I'd be saying that. George,
go figure. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, good stuff. Yeah. So I'm a city councilman for Pine Lake. So when you get your speeding ticket, you can blame me.
Well, we had you on before the election, so we're going to call this the present politics bump. Because clearly, of the people running for office in the municipal elections, we had several come on, and you won. So we're going to take credit for you winning. You got the present politics bump.
Yes, I blame you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
So we're talking about the Brave Stadium.
Yeah, we're talking about the ransom that these teams are able to demand in order to stay in cities. Like, what do you think about it? What do you think about the power that these teams have?
Where do I start? I think part of this is that politicians are scared. They're scared of looking like they're the ones holding the bag. Oh no, the Braves are leaving and it's Kasim Reed's fault, and so we're going to vote against you. And bear in mind, Kasim Reed I'm pissed off because the Falcons have managed to extract a bunch of money out of him. And then people turn around and hear the Braves saying, we're leaving. And people are mad at Kasim Reed when they were mad at him for holding on to the Falcons. Look, the bottom line here is that none of these groups should be asking for public money, period. Like they're profitable, money-making private enterprises, and when there's money that's public on the table for a stadium, it virtually never pays off.
And you're absolutely right. And the crazy thing to me is, okay, So the Falcons, now let's talk about the Falcons Stadium for a second. So the Falcons need a new stadium. They're going to put, it's a $1.2 billion stadium. They're going to put in, between them and the NFL, they're going to put in the billion, and they want the 0.2 from the city. They want, they want $200 million from the city. Mm-hmm. They just gave Matt Ryan $103.7 million for one player. One person gets $100 million, but you can't afford to just kick in the other $200 million to build your own stadium.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I started running some numbers on all of this a couple of days ago because apparently that's what I do when I'm bored and can't sleep. So, like the Cobb County, at the end of the day, Cobb County is going to take a bond out, and that bond is going to pay the $300 million or so that Cobb County's got on the hook, assuming they actually go through with this, which would be stupid.
I agree.
Of that, like basically what's going to happen is Cobb County's going to have to cough up somewhere, find an extra $9 million a year to pay for the bond, to pay for the stadium, on top of everything else that Cobb County's going to have to do. That's the difference between them being able to pay for the bond and them not. And that's what it's saying. Oh, it's only $9 million a year, and we've got a budget of $100 million a year, and who cares about not? Do what? It's a 2% increase. I started looking at what the averages were for how much people pay in property taxes in Cobb County. The average Cobb County property owner will have a 2% increase in their taxes from this, period. They will have a 2% increase in taxes because at some point the government's going to come after them and ask you for more money for something else that they could have used this money to pay for. So there's a 2% increase in their taxes just from building the stadium. But that's not where they lose the money. That's not where the big cost is. If you assume that there are, say, 36 home games that happen during rush hour, the 7 o'clock rush hour, like from 5 to 7, and everybody who's on the road trying to get up 75 or come around 285 is delayed by a half an hour trying to get home because of the game, based on the average salary of somebody who lives in Cobb County, that costs them $22 million a year in productivity.
That's insane. And on this, we talked about this earlier in the show, that if we invested all of this money, like, okay, as a metro area, we just did the T-Splost, where we were, we're going, nickel and diming, trying to figure out how we were going to get $1 billion for transportation. If you took the $300 million that Cobb County is putting into the Falcon Stadium, which is, I guarantee it's going to be more than that, because they were talking about $450 million to start with. So it's going to be more than that, because it doesn't make sense for the Falcons to move over $100 million difference. It doesn't make any sense. It's just economically doesn't make sense. So it's going to be more than that. Let's take them at face value. $300 million that the city or that the county is putting in order to build the new Brave Stadium in Cobb County. $200 million that the city of Atlanta is putting in to build the new Falcon Stadium. That is $500 million of public money, and we were just fighting over how to get $1 billion. Where did we just find $500 million that we didn't have in 2012?
It's ridiculous. It's insane. I mean, the short answer is part of this is being done because people think they can borrow money cheap today.
Absolutely.
For historical purposes, the interest rates on a bond are as low as they're ever going to be. So people are doing stupid stuff, borrowing money now because they think they can borrow the money cheap. And they're building this stuff that isn't going to pay off. And they're wasting the opportunity. That's the thing. If you're going to borrow $500 million, you can do a hell of a lot better in terms of a return on investment than what you're going to get building a sports stadium. Can you think of what we could build an entire new university out of $500 million? We could send everybody to, if you amortize it over 30 years, then take that and what do you have to pay for it today to get $300 million or $500 million? You could send every student who graduates from high school, in Metro Atlanta to college for free. It's stupid.
It absolutely is. And this is what we were saying on this question of the idea of politics, of who gets what when. That if you gave anyone with good sense the option of, well, we found $200 million just somewhere. They still haven't quite explained why this $200 million didn't exist 5 years ago and exists now when we need a stadium. But, if the mayor just told us, look, we're going to take $200 million, we're going to go buy gold, we're going to wait one day and sell it when it goes up by $5, then we will make more money than we're probably going to get in return from the Falcon Stadium, or that Cobb County is going to get in return from the Brave Stadium. So, but having you on the line, I did want to get to kind of with some of the things you're going to be doing in Pine Lake, and I'm going to get down off my soapbox for at least 5 minutes.
No, I like your soapbox. I was about to get back on your soapbox.
All right, well, hop on. You're the guest.
We're talking about jobs. Here's the thing: the one thing that'll drive me nuts is that they're saying, "Oh, it'll create like X thousand number of jobs," and once the construction jobs are gone, the jobs that are left are concessionaires that, at the numbers they're projecting, would be to making an average salary of like $10 an hour. In Cobb County, where the average salary is $30 an hour and nobody making $10 an hour can afford to live there, and there's no transportation built into the system. So you've got all of these people who can't afford to live in Cobb getting on the road after the game, adding to the congestion. It's so stupid. Sorry. Okay.
But
you wanted to talk about something else.
But you're exactly right. You're exactly right. Why is it that we can't invest $200 to $500 million in transportation? It doesn't make sense. And actually, I know you're a news hound. So, what do you think about these statements by the chairman of the Cobb County Commission that they don't want certain people to be at the games?
Unbelievable. Was it the commissioner?
I believe,
or was it the Republican Party chairman for the county?
I actually believe it was the chair of the Cobb County Commission. I'm almost certain it was the chair of the Cobb County Commission who basically said that.
Quote.
I'm going to pull up the quote. I'm going to pull up the quote right now. But what they said, that rail will be completely off the table. That there's no way they're going to be doing rail.
That was the Republican Party. The Cobb County Commission chairman, I believe, is in sync with him, but that was the Republican Party chairman for the county.
Okay.
And that guy's been around since Cobb County was being denied the Olympic torch because they were making anti-gay statements. I mean, he's been around that long.
Wow.
This doesn't work without rail, and I don't think they can find the money for the rail. Like they should. It would make sense, but this fellow is the thing that kills me about what he said is that people were saying, "Oh, it's not racial." There's nothing racist about saying that we don't want rail. We're just trying to keep crime down, and it's so transparently racist that it's jaw-droppingly racist is what it is. It's the sort of, and I don't look, and I try not to be the guy who's, screams racist all the time, but the history here. I mean, in 1968, they were trying to keep rail out of Cobb County because they didn't want to desegregate the county. And the idea, rail is so bound up with racial issues in Atlanta. Like I'm a former staff writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and one day I was looking back in the backlog of the Atlanta Constitution stuff. They used to write about Negro excursionists going out to Lawrenceville causing trouble, because they'd get on the rail, because they'd go and hop a rail out of 5 Points and go get off at a station in Duluth and then go have mischief. I mean, this is like news reports from 1920 or something like that.
Wow.
This is the psychology around rail and racism in Atlanta is fascinating and weird, and it still exists. And so in 1968, they said, no, we're not going to have rail out here. We don't want, quote, those people, unquote, getting into Cobb County. And here they're still playing this game. They're essentially said that what the Republican chairman of the Cobb County Commission is essentially saying is baseball is a white game.
Mm.
And that's the scary thing, because this is like Hank Aaron's home field, man, and you can't play that game here.
And this is the most. I think that the people don't understand that when MARTA was started, when they were just laying the first rails, when they're making the plans, people made an acronym saying that MARTA meant moving Africans rapidly through Atlanta. Mm-hmm. That's their opinion of MARTA. That's their opinion of rail, and they fear. For some reason, they think that, well, what's going to happen is that as soon as they put a MARTA station there, that they're just going to be overrun. It's going to look like, it's going to look like Walking Dead. It's going to look like Night of the Living Dead. It's just going to be an apocalypse. The first train is going to open up. They're just going to come pouring out from Bankhead and Vine City, from the West End, from the Southwest Atlanta. They're going to come running, and they're going to start looting and stealing white children and white women and pulling them back onto the trains and dragging them off into the slums and the swamps. This is what they believe will happen if they put a rail line there.
Yeah, these people need to travel more. I mean, that's the thing. Like, get out of Atlanta for a little while. Go to someplace that's got an actual system that works. Go to Boston. Go to San Francisco. Go to
Chicago, go to New York, go to D.C. Guess what? In Chicago, I keep referencing Chicago because I used to live there, but, there's a train, the Red Line, that goes from, 89th all the way deep down in the hood. And it goes all the way up through the city, up by Northwestern. And they don't have a zombie apocalypse of, rabid Negroes dragging off children.
What they have is a thriving bar system where you can get on a train and not have to drive after you leave the bar.
Exactly. I've had friends who have moved down here from other civilized locations, and they're just amazed at the fact that people just so casually drunk drive in Atlanta. But that's because we don't have cabs, we don't have transportation. If you leave a bar at 3:00 in the morning, you're like, I can either wait 30 minutes for a cab, or I can just try to wing it and try to get home. People don't understand. It's the most insane thing that you can't take a cab home from a bar in Atlanta, or you can't take a train or a bus home from a bar in Atlanta.
But they're going to be selling $8 beers at the stadium.
Yes, exactly. And it's insane. I'm always glad to have you on. We got to have you in studio. Just let me know what day you want to come in studio, because you're always a great guest to have on.
I appreciate that.
All right.
Someday I'll be able to do it.
Oh, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for calling. We're going to throw the break. When we come back, we're going to have Fred Hicks from Hicks Consulting on the line. We're going to stick with this Braves topic just a little bit longer. Listen to Present Politics live on Love 860 WAEC. Call in 404-355-8699. I'm your host, Robert Patillo.
Hello, this is Aaron Watson, your Atlanta City Council member, Post 2 at Large, encouraging you to register for Atlanta's Cry Wolf false alarm system. It is a free program aimed at reducing false burglary and security alarms at your home and business. When there's a false alarm and Atlanta police respond, they are pulled away from true emergencies. When you register with Cry Wolf, you are saving yourself from paying fines up to $150, and you are keeping our police focused on fighting crime. This is your Atlanta City Council member, Aaron Watson, reminding you to register online at crywolf.us/AtlantaGA or call 1-855-725-7102.
860 AM WAEC Atlanta.
The opinions expressed during the sponsored programs on this station are strictly those of the program hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of Beasley Broadcast Group, this station, its staff, other advertisers, or agencies. The lawyers of Johnson, Hopewell, Coleman offer the quality, experience, and expertise of a big firm, but with the personalized, client-centered approach to legal services that only a smaller firm can offer. Practice areas include personal injury, auto accidents, slip and fall, and negligent security, plus on-the-job injury, bankruptcy, family law, business and corporate law, wills and estates, and charter schools. Call today to see why Johnson, Hopewell, Coleman should be your one-stop law shop for all of your business and personal needs. Conveniently located in Decatur, within 5 miles of both 285 and I-20. Call and schedule an appointment right now. 404-289-2244. 404-289-2244. Or go online to jhclawyers.com. The hiring of an attorney is an important decision that should not be based solely upon advertising. Ask for free written information about the firm's qualifications and experience.
Middle Georgia Productions and ATL Radio presents Rimshot Urban Musical, nominated ATL's Hottest Stage Play 2013. Rimshot Urban Musical integrates the works of a dynamic group of positive and innovative musicians, artists, scribes, and dancers while conveying an engaging, educational, and stimulating message. How far would you be willing to go for fame? Fortune. Things aren't always what they seem. The highly anticipated Rimshot Anniversary Celebration is on November 23rd at 7 o'clock at the Rockdale County Auditorium in Conyers, Georgia. To secure your tickets today, visit www.rimshoturbanmusical.com. Follow the movement on Facebook at Rimshot Urban Musical or call us at 678-306-3616. Rimshot Urban Musical, performing arts for social change.
Call into this live broadcast toll-free anywhere from the continental U.S. at 1-866-923-2860. That's 1-866-923-2860. Metro Atlanta callers can still call 404-355-8699.
This is Present Politics, hosted by leading political strategist Rashad Ritchie and civil rights attorney Robert Patillo. Listen as they interview trendsetters and newsmakers, both local and national. This is our time to talk about political issues that matter to us. Guaranteed to be controversial and always informative. Join us every Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. only on Love 860 WAEC, Atlanta's inspirational talk radio. You can also listen online at presentpolitics.com.
Good afternoon and welcome back. You're listening to Present Politics live on Love 860 WAEC. Call in 404-355-8699. Follow us online, www.presentpolitics.com. Too many W's. Facebook.com/presentpolitics. Twitter @presentpolitics. I'm sure we're on Instagram and Tumblr and Flickr and the other 357 trillion social media sites. You know, I teach a class to 8 to 12-year-old girls on Saturday on speech and debate. And every time I talk to them, I feel I'm 100 years older. Because they talk about the amount of social media that's pumped into the mind of an 8-year-old nowadays. For anyone over the age of about 25, it's just mind-numbing and mind-boggling. There's no way for you to comprehend it, so don't try. Just nod your head and smile. Actually, yesterday I had an article in the AJC about the Stand Your Ground suit that we filed. So I went to the gas station to buy a copy of the newspaper, and so I pick up the newspaper, I give the girl 50 cents. She said, "That's $1.25. I was like, "What?" I said, "Girl, don't you know back in my day, newspaper was 50 cents and a coffee was a nickel." And then I just realized I'm old and gave up on it, went home and did some gardening. But we're talking about the Braves Stadium. Back on topic. Talking about the Braves Stadium and public policy. And we have one of the leading political consultants, not just in Georgia, in the country. If you need to get elected, you call this man. He's like Batman. He catapults in, shows up, does all of his stuff behind the scenes. You never even see him. He's not even on camera. All you know is you won and you were supposed to lose. We have on the phone master political strategist, Fred Hicks. Fred, are you there? Really, after that intro, Fred.
Wonderful. Amazing intro.
Can you hear me, Fred?
I can. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you now. You were breaking up for a second there. How are you doing?
Sorry about that. Oh, man, I'm doing well, Robert. Thank you so much for that fantastic intro.
Oh, no problem. Fred is a good friend of mine, old friend. Actually, I owe him a drink next time he is in town, but he is never here because he's always out running campaigns around the country.
This has been a busy year. It has been a busy and a very good year.
Hey, it's better.
Absolutely.
It is better than the alternative of sitting at home, eating Cheetos, wondering how you're going to pay the light bill.
That's true. That's very true. That is very, very true. Can't complain. So, Robert, I'm excited to be on, and thank you for having me back, and a big hello to all the listeners out there. This fantastic show.
Well, it was great having you on last time. Now this time, I know you're also a huge sports fan, so I wanted you to kind of talk about what your thoughts on this Braves Stadium deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you, this this move, like I think most people in Atlanta, this really struck me at my core. I'm a huge sports fan, but I'm really a huge baseball fan. My grandfather played in the Negro Leagues. It was kind of our family sport, not basketball or football. Baseball was our family sport, and grew up loving the Braves. Dale Murphy. Loving the old Fulton County Stadium. I was there rooting for the Braves when we were 62 and 100. I remember worst to first, and so it's kind of painful to me on a personal level to hear this news about the Braves leaving Atlanta for the suburbs.
And it's I think the biggest thing to me is not just them leaving, but the way they did it and the reasons they did it. That right now we're put into a situation. I call it a hostage negotiation. I know most people won't like that, but it's a hostage negotiation. These millionaire and billionaire owners or these ownership groups, they get to say, well, either you give us the $250,000, $500,000, or $250 million, $500 million that we want for our stadium, or we'll leave and find some other sucker to do it. What do you think that people, normal voters, can do about this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think in this case, honestly, Robert, I don't think the Braves want to stay here. They're looking at the greener pastures, the bigger dollar signs that they think they'll get from Cobb County. But for voters, I think the only way that you'll see this stop is if voters everywhere stand up and say, no, we're not going to publicly finance your private playground. And so if they have no place to go, then they'll have to stay put. So voters really kind of have to stand together, stand united, and in opposition to these kinds of things. But what you see right now is you have Cobb County, who's willing to put $300 or so million into this, not give their voters an opportunity to vote on this. So you see the politicians there making their moves, doing what they want to do to try to lure the Braves there, so that folks in Atlanta really don't have much of a say-so in the matter.
It's crazy to me. We just had George Cheedy on the line, and we were looking at some of the numbers. And so let's contrast. Let's look at the Falcon Stadium. Falcon Stadium is $1.2 billion. The NFL and the Falcons are putting in the billion, and the city of Atlanta is kicking in $200 million. But if you look at the Falcons roster, just what they're spending on players over the next 2 seasons, it's over $200 million. So they have the money. Why do they need public financing for these things? Why is it they can't allow the cities to spend their money on their things to improve the city around the cities around these stadiums, instead of having to dip into our limited kitty in order to make things better for them?
Oh, that's a big question. That's a great question. When I billion with a B, I'll let you know the answer to that.
Yeah,
but seriously, I think right now it's just a situation where these owners are looking around, taking stock, and deciding that why spend their own money if they don't have to. I mean, that's $200 million that, in this case, Mr. Blank can keep, or in the case of the Braves, $300 to $350 million that they don't have to expend out of their pockets for it. I could almost understand that if residents within those areas, that is, the people who are paying for this private playground, were given some sort of credit on tickets or merchandising or something like that. But the reality is that they're not going to lower the ticket prices. They're not going to lower the parking prices. They're not going to lower the concession prices, even though they're getting this subsidy from this welfare, really, from the voters.
I like that you put it that way. It really is corporate welfare, because even with the Falcons, with the Georgia Dome being right there in Vine City, nobody in Vine City was going to the games. If you live in Vine City, you can't afford to park to go to the game. You can't afford a sandwich or a hot dog at the game. But you have to deal with the traffic every single Sunday. Northside Drive shut down. MLK shut down for Falcons games. Every home game. Every time there's an event at the Dome, this happens. So your community has to deal with these detriments, but you're not seeing any of the benefits. The money that's generated inside of those stadiums stays inside of those stadiums. It's not given back. It doesn't excrete out from those stadiums into the communities.
Well, absolutely. And that is the one upside to this Braves move, at least in the early rounds of the discussion here. If the city can, if Mayor Reed's vision for a bustling, middle-class area with sound infrastructure and maybe even water to help the entire city, if these things can come to pass, then truly Southeast Atlanta, where Turner Field currently is, will benefit far greater. The residents around the current Turner Field will benefit far greater than they have in the past, 16, 17 years, and certainly much more so than they would benefit in the future. If you can get in there, you can do this right, you can put the right kind of...
Yeah, I think you broke out. See if you can call back in. So I think we lost Fred for a second, but just picking up on his point, it seems to me amazing that the people just don't see an immediate benefit. That if you live 3 blocks from Turner Field, the only thing that you know is that there's a bunch of traffic generated by it. You don't see any of the economic benefits. Just think about the following: that if you're looking at the area from space or from a satellite, if you're looking down, if you have a dot on one person playing right field for the Braves, they're probably making $10 million right now. If you have a dot on someone sitting in the stands, they're probably making $100,000 because they could afford seats to go see the Braves. If you put a dot right across the street at someone who lives next to the stadium, they're probably in abject poverty. Because they promised these jobs, just as George Cheedy said, they promised these jobs will be created by the stadium. There will be an economic driver. But they create construction jobs. People, these companies, they come in, they build the stadium. Oftentimes they bring their own workers in from out of state. And then once they come in, the stadium is built and they leave. Then there are concession jobs. And after that, after these seasonal jobs, there are no long-term jobs. There are no real economic drivers built into the system. The whole thing is getting to the point of being ludicrous to me. So we're going to come back after the break. We're going to have Fred call back in. Looks like his phone broke up. You're listening to Present Politics live on Love 860 AM WAEC. Call in 404-355-8699. Be back after the break.
The lawyers of Johnson, Hopewell, Coleman offer the quality, experience, and expertise of a big firm, but with the personalized, client-centered approach to legal services that only a smaller firm can offer. Practice areas include personal injury, auto accidents, slip and fall, and negligent security, plus on-the-job injury, bankruptcy, family law, business and corporate law, wills and estates, and charter schools. Call today to see why Johnson, Hopewell, Coleman should be your one-stop law shop for all of your business and personal needs. Conveniently located in Decatur, within 5 miles of both 285 and I-20. Call and schedule an appointment right now. 404-289-2244. 404-289-2244. Or go online to jhclawyers.com. The hiring of an attorney is an important decision that should not be based solely upon advertising. Ask for free written information about the firm's qualifications and experience.
Hello, this is Aaron Watson, your Atlanta City Council member, Post 2 at Large, encouraging you to register for Atlanta's Cry Wolf false alarm system. It is a free program aimed at reducing false burglary and security alarms at your home and business. When there's a false alarm and Atlanta police respond, they are pulled away from true emergencies. When you register with Cry Wolf, you are saving yourself from paying fines up to $150, and you are keeping our police focused on fighting crime. This is your Atlanta City Council member, Aaron Watson, reminding you to register online at crywolf.us/AtlantaGA or call 1-855-725-7102.
Good afternoon, and we are back. Present Politics, Love 860 WAEC. I'm your host, Robert Patillo. Phone number 443-555-8699. Someone just told me in the chat box, I always forget the national call-in number. 1-866-923 2860. If you're not in the Atlanta area, you can still call in nationwide. Far too often you forget, this generation's forgotten about long distance because of cell phones. You don't even pay attention to the area code. But you can call in nationally. 1-866-923-2860. Of course, you can follow us online at presentpolitics.com, Facebook.com/presentpolitics, Twitter @presentpolitics. Get involved, get into the conversation, call in. We are back with Fred Hicks on the line from HEG LLC Consulting. Now, Fred, can you kind of tell us what HEG does?
Absolutely, Rob. So HEG stands for the Hicks Evaluation Group, and we specialize in data-driven decisions. So we build analytical models, we analyze data, and we use that for all of our consulting. So whether we're doing political consulting or non-political consulting, we believe that everything starts with the data, and we let that tell the story and drive our decisions. So if you need political consulting, you need someone to analyze data for you to help you make decisions at a critical point in your company's life cycle. We are the ones for you.
So
we do direct mail and a bunch of other things as well, but it all starts with data.
I remember years ago, what was that, 2010, when we were working on the AG's race. You were one of our consultants, and it's just so amazing to see the growth that you've had since then. That you really have had the ability to just get people elected, just make people make the right decision at the right time. Now, how can people get in contact with you if they are listening in and they just hear it and they understand that this is the man that I need to win this election? How do they contact you?
Sure. A couple of different ways. My cell phone number, anyone can reach me. Text or phone call is 678-701-5225. That's 678-701-5225. We are on the web at HEGLLC.org. That's HEGLLC.org. So you can find us out there. We're also on Facebook via HEG. And I'm also on Twitter at the Hicks Report, Hicks Report, no V, just at Hicks Report, HICKSREPORT. And 2010, it feels like a lifetime ago, but that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. And for my sports fans, because I know people are making a hard decision between watching the UGA game and listening to Present Politics, and I do thank all of our listeners. Georgia is getting stomped by Auburn right now, 27-7. So you can tell your friends to just turn the game off and listen to Present Politics.
The only game that really matters right now is the FSU game, all right? And we are stopping Syracuse, and we will stomp anyone else who comes in our pathway, including all you Alabama fans. Just go ahead and take notice right now. We'll see you in Pasadena in January, and we'll beat you too. Roll Knowles.
Well, look, if we're going to be doing college shout-outs, I would like to give a shout-out and traveling prayers to Clark Atlanta University, my alma mater, traveling to Baton Rouge to play the Southern Jaguars. I wish I could be at the game. It sounds like it's going to be very entertaining. I'm a Clark Marching Band alumni, so I'm sure they're giving the Jaguars a run for their money right now. Fingers crossed behind my back, and we're hoping for the best. I'll wait for the video on YouTube. But back to the show.
Back indeed.
Yeah. So Fred, I know we've been talking about the Braves for a while now, so I want to get to some local politics and the APS. You want to tell the listeners what's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a runoff election on December 3rd, and most people are unaware that there's an equally important election taking place in the city. Early voting will start, I think, on the 21st, and what's at stake in this particular election is control of the Atlanta Public School Board. You have 4 seats, 2 at large, 2 district seats that are up this year. All with one incumbent, and the other 3 are open seats. And so there's quite a bit at stake for the city. If you recall, the cheating scandal that engulfed the entire school system in the city about 2 years ago, which is actually quite pertinent since former Superintendent Beverly Hall is on trial now for that cheating scandal. That kind of thing, that shadow is still looming over the city right now. And this election will really give the citizens of Atlanta an opportunity to move beyond the shadow of the cheating scandal lay a great foundation for the kids and move their system forward. As the school system goes, so goes the city.
And you're completely right. And there's been a huge anti-incumbent movement in these municipal elections. We saw Brenda Muhammad wasn't able to retain her seat on the school board. We saw Aaron Watson go out on the city council. So who's up in these APS runoffs?
Absolutely. We'll start with the incumbent race, and that's the race featuring incumbent school board chair Ruben McDaniel versus Cynthia Briscoe Brown. So that's an at-large citywide race, so everyone in the city can vote on that race. And then you have another at-large race. I think you're familiar with this gentleman, Robert, Jason Estevez versus Lori James, and the other citywide race. And then you have two district races that really are right in the cone for your listening audience. That's in Southwest Atlanta. You have Stephen Lee versus Mary Palmer, and the District 5 seat that covers City Council Districts 9 and 10. And then you have Ishay Collins versus Dale Bird, and that covers City Council Districts 11 and 12. So right there in the heart of Southwest Atlanta. So you have two school board seats there, and those are both open seats. The Estevez James seat is contest is for an open seat. And then the only incumbent is the chair, Ruben McDaniel, who's going against Cynthia Briscoe Brown.
It's interesting that you talk about the fact that so many people don't know about the runoff because I ran against Jason the last election and neither of us won. It was a 3-person race, but you spend so much money as a insurgent candidate just trying to get to the general election that oftentimes it's that financial wherewithal that really determines who's going to win in that runoff and who can remotivate their voting base to turn out. So if you were advising a campaign that was headed into this runoff election, what would you be advising them to do?
Get out, get going early, and to get out there and get your name known and get your platform out there. And you know this, Robert. One of the most important things, if not the most important thing you can do in a campaign, is set the terms of the debate. So define yourself, define your opponent, frame the issues for the voters first, early, and often.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
And it's great that you mentioned that because I talk to people so often who want to run for office, and they always want to jump over the preliminary points. They want to just get straight to it. I'm like, no, there's some things you need to do to get things up and running first. One, you need to raise some money. Two, you got to get out there, shake some hands. You got to talk to people. You can't, now I think with our generation and social media, people think they can just make a Twitter account and then that's it. They can go home and sit down. The election is over. They think that it's done. They don't understand. You have to call Fred Hicks. That's the first call you have to make in politics in Atlanta. That's the first call you make because you have to find out, do you have a chance of winning? You have to get those poll numbers in. You have to get those results in. You have to find out where am I starting at? What is the lay of the land? So people so often want to get straight to the election, but they don't want to do the preliminary work before that in order to get the information out there. So, Fred, what are your predictions for the election coming up?
Well, what's interesting about this one, Robert, is the general election last week, I think we peaked at around 46,000 votes cast in the mayor's election, but most of the other seats were right around 44,000, which is the lowest that I can track going back to at least 1993. So you had a very, very low turnout. 2005, you had about 57,000 people vote. 2001, you had 70,000. 97 was also a high one. So, for whatever reason, turnout 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago was really, really low. And so, a lot of folks have been playing around with the numbers and looking at it. We're probably looking at a turnout that's going to be half at best the size of the last one that the election from 2 weeks ago. So, I think that the story really at this point is yet to be told. I think that all eyes will be on the McDaniel and Cynthia Briscoe Brown race. So you have again Ruben, who's the incumbent chair. You have Cynthia Briscoe Brown, who has been deeply involved with the North Atlanta parents, and as you all know, there's been a lot of interest and conversation around North Atlanta High School from the price tag on the new school to the principal and all of that. And then you're going to have these district level races where you have two very, very interesting candidates, a long-term community servant and Stephen Lee versus someone else who's also been deeply involved with the community for a long time, in Mary Palmer. So I think ultimately what's going to come down to is, if there's any sort of hidden information out there about candidates that didn't come out in the general election, I think that kind of thing can sway stuff. Bad personal financial management or some sort of controversy surrounding them. Because right now, when you're talking about the school board, I think Atlanta voters are really conflict and controversy averse. They want candidates who have a strong background. They want candidates who have vision, but really they want clean candidates. We don't want to go back into another cycle. We don't want to deal with sex again. We don't want to deal with the prospects of losing our accreditation. So I think the sort of personal character of each one of the candidates will probably play more into voter decisions this go around than it normally would.
And I think that's one of the things that at this point in the election is very hard to drive up positive numbers about you. You're a known commodity by the runoff, but it's very easy to drive up negatives. And so I think voters, especially those quote unquote super voters, because every time a candidate comes to you, they say, "I just need to know the super voters in my district." What just so people know who aren't involved in politics that much, your super voters, quote unquote, are just the people who vote in every election. The solid Democrats, the people who you can put down as a 5, who they're gonna vote in the general election, they're gonna vote in the off-year election, they're voting in the special election, they're voting in the runoff election every single time. Those are the people that they call quote unquote super voters. And at this point, they've gotten so many mail pieces, they've gotten so many robocalls and phone calls and yard signs that there's very little that can be done to drive up the positives. So using elections like this is when people try to start running up the negatives of their opponents in any way they can. So this is what I like to call the fun part of politics. And we've done a lot of robocalls over the years, and I think voters can expect to hear a lot of them in the next couple weeks when these candidates are really scrapping tooth and nail. Now, Fred, can you stay with us for one more segment? I want to talk about some national politics.
Absolutely, I'll be there.
All right, well, we're going to throw the break real quick. You're listening to Present Politics live on Love 860 WAEC. Call in 404-355-8699. The man Sheldon holding it down in the production booth, eating pizza. I'm getting hungry over here, too. All right, you're listening to Present Politics. We'll be back after the break.
Hello, this is Aaron Watson, your Atlanta City Council member, Post 2 at Large, encouraging you to register for Atlanta's Cry Wolf false alarm system. It is a free program aimed at reducing false burglary and security alarms at your home and business. When there's a false alarm and Atlanta police respond, they are pulled away from true emergencies. When you register with Cry Wolf, you are saving yourself from paying fines up to $150, and you are keeping our police focused on fighting crime. This is your Atlanta City Council member, Aaron Watson, reminding you to register online at crywolf.us/AtlantaGA or call 1-855-725-7102.
The lawyers of Johnson, Hopewell, Coleman offer the quality, experience, and expertise of a big firm, but with the personalized, client-centered approach to legal services that only a smaller firm can offer. Practice areas include personal injury, auto accidents, slip and fall, and negligent security, plus on-the-job injury, bankruptcy, family law, business and corporate law, wills and estates, and charter schools. Call today to see why Johnson, Hopewell, Coleman should be your one-stop law shop for all of your business and personal needs. Conveniently located in Decatur, within 5 miles of both 285 and I-20. Call and schedule an appointment right now, 404-289-2244. 404-289-2244, or go online to jhclawyers.com. The hiring of an attorney is an important decision that should not be based solely upon advertising. Ask for free written information about the firm's qualifications and experience.
Yesterday, I got a notice from the IRS. They say I owe them over $16,000. I don't have that kind of money, but the notice said if I don't pay it in 30 days, they're going to go into my bank account and take my money, put a lien on my house, and garnish my wages. Can they really do that?
If you owe back taxes, unless you get help, the IRS can do all that and more. Don't try to fight the IRS on your own. Use Coast One Financial Group and let them help you get a fresh start. Their Fresh Start program that will stop collection efforts, remove any liens the IRS or state have in place, and help you reduce your back taxes by as much as 80%. You get a fresh start if you owe at least $10,000 in back taxes. They're so sure they can help you that they'll give you a 20% discount just for calling right now. Dial 800-531-1669. That's 800-531-1669. Again, 800-531-1669.
We are back. Present Politics live on Love 860 AM WAEC. Call in 404-355-8699. I'm your host, Robert Patillo. Don't forget, you can still follow us on social media. www.presentpolitics.com, facebook.com/presentpolitics, Twitter @presentpolitics. Because, you know, I mentioned this earlier. I teach a class to 8 to 12-year-olds on Saturdays. And when I told them about the radio show, they said, well, how do you listen to it? I said, on the radio. Right, but how do you listen to it? I'm like, you can listen online. Because if it's not online, it doesn't exist. If you can't listen to it on an Android or iPhone, it does not exist. Even though this is being beamed out over the Love 860 AM radio signal all across Metro Atlanta, it has to be online or people aren't going to be able to listen. So we're back with Fred Hicks. You know, we talked about local politics, and you know, I've got a couple dogs in the race that I'm gonna love that I would love to see win. You know, Shay Collins actually lives in my subdivision, so I have to support her because she can come to my house. So I'm going to be giving Shay Collins in the school board elections the Present Politics bump. Also, Jason Estevez. We became friends during the last campaign. Great guy, really tall, light-skinned, which is always good. We're gonna give Jason Estevez the Present Politics bump. Because he's a great guy.
Spike Lee is cringing right now.
He absolutely is. But you know, we're gonna give him the Present Politics bump. So I would really love to see Jason win. I think he would be a great public service. Former Teach for America. You know, big law firm experience working at McKenna, Aldrich, and Long, but a really good guy, really someone who's interested in young people and education and public policy and doing the right thing. But Fred, you're the man who I want to talk to you about national politics. What's up, what's up with your boy Obama? And he is your boy currently because he's messing up.
I mean, I could have sworn you slept like in some 44 pajamas or something like that. That's what I heard.
I was there. 2007. Remember when he clinched the nomination at Grant Park in Chicago? It was like 20 degrees, and I was out there huddled together with all my friends. We all cried. We fought through traffic. You would have thought that it was Viva la Revolution. I was there in D.C. January 2008 for the swearing in. Me, one of my good friends, Dwayne, his then girlfriend, now wife. Wow, that was a long time ago. His wife, Liz, were all out there huddled together, freezing cold from 4 a.m. waiting for the speeches. Then after the inauguration, D.C. descended into what can only be described as a post-apocalyptic hellscape. There was no more public transportation. There were no cabs. There was no way to get around the city. We roamed on the highways. This is actually true. We were walking down the highway because everything had just broken apart. The entire social system of D.C. had descended into chaos. Wow. We did this for Obama so that we could get our universal health care. And what happened? Fred, what happened?
I guess I was foreshadowing because just like the Metro broke down, the website broke down. So I can see some parallels here. All right. No, seriously, I'll tell you. You know, this is... I think, you know, the administration's at a real crossroads right now, and they they've got to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to do it very fast, because the Senate is on the line, and I'm pretty certain that this president does not want to deal with the Republican-controlled House and Senate.
You're absolutely right, because, if for a while there, it was looking like we might even have a chance at the House. It was looking like, Obama was doing great. We had the economy booting back up. We were blaming, specifically right after the government shutdown, opinions were so negative against the Republicans. The Democrats had all this political capital, and it seems to have all been squandered in the last couple weeks. Not just with the website, but with this issue of whether or not you can keep your insurance. And for people, I know most our audience is very savvy. But from the beginning, even during the first election, the whole thing about this Affordable Care Act, universal health care, Romney Care, Obamacare was, if you like your insurance, if you like your doctor, you'll be able to keep them under the Affordable Care Act. But that's not quite what happened. So Fred, what do you think about this?
You're absolutely right. That was sort of the background, but the backbone of the argument, the basic premise that, hey, there were two premises. One, that people should have the same health care that members of Congress have. I'm sure you remember the president saying that when he was on the campaign trail in 2007 and 2008.
Absolutely.
And then the second premise was that you would be able to, if you have health care and you like it, you don't have to change anything. You can keep it, and everything will go along as it has been. And so neither of those two things have happened. And I would say to you this: imagine if the Republicans had not shut down the government, how much control they would have of the conversation right now. If they moved forward, let the government continue, October 1st rolled around, and the site, everything else happened around the healthcare site and enrollment process that has happened. The Republicans would be far and away running with this show, and I'm probably looking at having discussions about committee assignments next year in the Senate.
You're completely right. It's crazy because if Obama had anyone else besides the most insane Republican Party of the last, I'll say, quarter century, at least third of a century, then he would have no political capital left. But the Republicans keep shooting themselves in the foot, which is giving Obama chances.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, the administration's got to find a way to fix this and get it right. Particularly the healthcare, the website, that's one issue, and it's kind of relative to the other issue, I think it's kind of a small one. But the idea that people are getting dropped from their insurance left and right due to the ACA, the Affordable Health Care Act, AHCA, is a real problem, and it's a real problem that threatens this signature legislation. And here's, I'll tell you why. Because even though the president will want to hold on to it, these Democrats, like, say, Senator Mary Landrieu, or some of the folks in the Midwest, these Democrats who are up for re-election next year, they are going to, well, I think we've already seen that they're applying pressure. I think that pressure will only intensify, that they're applying to the president to come up with some sort of solution, because they don't want to have to explain this away next year. And by next year, I mean right after Christmas and New Year's on the campaign trail. So you look at those areas where you have Democrats who are in the Senate who are up, like in Alaska, and again Louisiana and other places like that, who are in swing states. I think you're going to see something. You're going to see, because of that, you're going to see some more changes, structural changes to the act.
And, it's crazy because now any political capital, any, coattails that Obama had after the failed government shutdown are basically gone. Because when you have the president coming out saying, oops, my bad, but not just once, over the course of months, it's been calamity after calamity with the Affordable Care Act. And the craziest part of it is, if Obama had listened to the Republicans, it all would have been okay for once. Remember when the Republicans were fighting for a 1-year delay in the implementation of Obamacare? That was only a month ago. If he had just compromised it, the 1 year delay, they could have hammered out all of this. The website would have worked. They could have worked out this issue on whether or not you'll be dropped by your insurance companies. It all would have worked out. So by the Republicans trying to spite Obama and the Democrats, they actually would have ended up doing them a favor.
Yeah, but the reality, I think, Robin, is that even if he gives a year-long delay, there's not much of an interest on the part of the Republicans to fix the bill. It's repeal or bust. And that's really the problem where we are right now. Well, one of the many problems that I think the president is hesitant to make a lot of modifications because he doesn't feel like he has partners on the other side of the aisle who are willing to work to keep the law in place but to fix it. And that's going to be an interesting development over the next few months to see how that works out, because the reality to me is that we can't go back to what we had before. We just simply can't. We can't go back to pre-existing conditions. We can't go back to lifetime caps. We can't go back to all the sort of small things that prevented people from getting the kind of health care treatment that they needed. We can't go back to more to the point that what Republicans would be interested in knowing. We can't go back to the era of ridiculous payments for services, and where you have a hospital in Miami charging one rate for the same procedure and a hospital in New York charging a different rate, and a hospital in Atlanta charging a third rate. But we can't have that. We can't go back to the era of fraud and these other things that plague the American healthcare system. There are a lot of good cost controls built into the Healthcare Act. However, if I think that if the president really genuinely felt that he would have a partner or partners on the other side of the aisle who would be willing to fix this, working to fix this over the next year, then he would probably be willing to do it. But he's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with this one right now.
But this the crazy thing to me, that Republicans hate the Affordable Care Act. And I say this all the time, but this is the Republican health care bill. There is no alternative that Republicans can try to pass, because this is the bill that they have fought for 20 years to pass. So the reason they won't negotiate with Obama is that they don't have an alternative. Their alternative was the previous status quo. So I actually agree with Obama when he says, don't criticize me for it. Try to help me fix it. Put up or shut up. If you're not going to try to fix it, then quit talking about it. So what do you think the end game is going to be here? What do you think the solution is going to be?
I think we're going to end up with a year-long delay in the mandate. I think that he's going to explore the legal possibilities of letting some parts go while maintaining the cost controls and maintaining the more popular parts like the lifetime gap and the pre-existing conditions, and kind of work through the others. Now again, I'm not I'm not an attorney like you. I'm not a healthcare expert. I'm a politico. We do political consulting. So I'm just kind of looking at it on the outside. So I don't know what's feasible within the way that the law is written. But I think you're going to have to see some movement on this away from his current position.
Absolutely. Well, that is Fred Hicks with HEG LLC Consulting. He's already got some Twitter followers out of being on the show. Everyone, be sure to follow Fred Hicks. And if you're going to be running for office, he's the man to call. You think you need Olivia Pope? No, you need Fred Hicks in your corner. Then you won't even have to have the scandal. You won't even need the scandal. He will take care of it. You listen to President Politics. Thanks, Fred. You listen to President Politics. WAEC Love 860 AM 404-355-8699. We're coming to the end of this show. We'll see you after the break on President Politics. I'm your host, Robert Patillo.
The lawyers of Johnson, Hopewell, Coleman offer the quality, experience, and expertise of a big firm, but with the personalized, client-centered approach to legal services that only a smaller firm can offer. Practice areas include personal injury, auto accidents, slip and fall, and negligent security, plus on-the-job injury, bankruptcy, family law, business and corporate law, wills and estates, and charter schools. Call today to see why Johnson Hopewell Coleman should be your one-stop law shop for all of your business and personal needs. Conveniently located in Decatur, within 5 miles of both 285 and I-20. Call and schedule an appointment right now. 404-289-2244. 404-289-2244. Or go online to jhclawyers.com. The hiring of an attorney is an important decision that should not be based solely upon advertising. Ask for free written information about the firm's qualifications and experience.
Hello, this is Aaron Watson, your Atlanta City Council member, Post 2 at Large, encouraging you to register for Atlanta's Cry Wolf false alarm system. It is a free program aimed at reducing false burglary and security alarms at your home and business. When there's a false alarm and Atlanta police respond, they are pulled away from true emergencies. When you register with Cry Wolf, you are saving yourself from paying fines up to $150, and you are keeping our police focused on fighting crime. This is your Atlanta City Council member, Aaron Watson, reminding you to register online at crywolf.us/AtlantaGA or call 1-855-725-7102.
Good afternoon, and we are back. Last segment. Time flies when you're having fun. 2 hours down that quick. Oh, Lord, oh, Lord, oh, Lord, oh, Lord, oh, Lord. You're listening to President Politics live on Love 860 WAEC. 44355-8699 is the last minute, 10-minute afterburn. We need to get your calls in, so if you're going to call, it's the time, 44355-8699. Your host, Robert Patillo. Remember, you can still follow us online. PresidentPolitics.com, Facebook.com/PresidentPolitics, Twitter @PresidentPolitics. You know, we talked about the Braves. We talked about some of these national stories. We want to also look at things that have been in the news lately. Now, I don't know how many of you have been following this story. It's out of Detroit. There's a young woman who was in a car accident, a young black teenager, 19 years old, and she stumbled away from the car. She was, disoriented, and she, after being in a car accident, you're in shock, you're disoriented, barely have your wits about yourself. So she stumbles away, and she walks up to a door looking for help, trying to get help from one of her neighbors or someone in the community. And the person at the door, an older white man, according to him, he said he thought that she was a burglar, shot her and killed her right there. It's a tragic, absolutely a tragic story. The young lady's name was Ranisha McBride, 19 years old. And initially he claimed self-defense. He said that, we talk about this almost every week on this show, this issue of self-defense, unreasonable self-defense, and the fact that these laws have been, have almost created a shoot first mentality. And, in this country, that it's no longer self-defense, it's self-offense. That if someone's just near you, you shoot first. You don't ask any questions, you just start shooting, hope for the best, you'll probably be okay. Just a black person standing on your porch, just shoot them. What else are you gonna do? What else could they be there for? But the good thing is that Michigan is a state that isn't in the deep South. It's not Georgia. Is not Florida. And, even though when you leave Detroit proper, oftentimes it can get very rural very quickly, the man's actually been charged with second-degree murder. And I think in this situation, there's a good chance that he'll be convicted. Because it wouldn't be premeditated murder, because I've heard people calling for first-degree murder charges against this individual. This would not be a premeditated first-degree malice murder situation. What that involves is premeditation, as in that you were plotting, making it your conscious object to kill this individual. So that would be the justification or the basis for a premeditated murder charge. Second-degree murder is a situation where the murder happened sometimes in a fit of rage, sometimes unplanned. That's second-degree murder. So I think this fits tightly into a second-degree murder or maybe a manslaughter charge. And this, it would depend on the facts at trial. I also think that a big part of it will be what the prosecution charges as the lesser included offenses. I think this might be a situation where they charge second-degree murder, but they also include manslaughter as one of the lesser included offenses. And I say all this to say that this is one of the reasons that we've been fighting so hard to overturn the stand your ground law here in Georgia, because right here in Georgia, there's a good chance that if this same event happened, that a confused teenager who was just in a car accident stumbled onto your person, onto your porch, and you shot them, you probably would not even be arrested. Truthfully, you probably would not be arrested. Because that's just the nature of the laws in this state. That's just the nature of the lay of the land here. That we don't have a state, we don't have jurisprudence, we don't have laws on the books right now that protect individuals from being shot. And it's one of the sadder points. That's the reason that. I just wrote, if you have an opportunity, I wrote a op-ed for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution yesterday. So it's in the Friday, August 15th paper. You can also get on the AJC website under the op-ed section. But we talked about the stand your ground law in the op-ed. It's 500 words where we mentioned that the laws applied so unevenly. The laws applied in such a way that there's absolutely no way for an individual to know what actions are legal and what actions aren't legal. There's no way for you to make sure that you're not presenting a threat to an individual, because such as in this situation, where we have a young lady, 19 years old, literally asking for help and being gunned down. Imagine being gunned down while asking for help. That's the problem with guns in our society. That's the problem with the hyper criminalization of African Americans in the media, which is a whole different point beyond the legal argument. And partially it is our fault. A big part of it is our fault as African Americans by perpetuating these stereotypes of ourselves of being almost a prison yard mentality that, there's no more quote unquote soft black music, because even the R&B singers have to be hard now. Even gospel singers have to be thugs now. So, this over criminalization of the criminal justice system, this hardening of the image of African Americans has created fear in many communities. And then you combine that with uneven racial prejudice. What you end up with is a situation where people feel that they are justified at any time to shoot a young African American, no matter what you're doing or what you think you're doing. People feel like they are justified just because of the images they see in media and the personal prejudices which they hold. And as of right now, the law protects that. The law protects individuals being able to shoot. They can shoot at will. They can shoot when they want. This affects me because I meet with families very often, far too often, whose children have been gunned down, and very often with no recourse because of these stand your ground laws, which are in place in Georgia and 26 other states. And because of these police officers and prosecutors and local juries and judges, there's so often no justice. I've met with the families of Kennard Arnold, Ariston Waiters, Herman Smith, who's currently serving a life sentence, and one of the plaintiffs in our suit, James Christopher Johnson, who was gunned down in Noonan, Georgia. And these laws, they make so little sense. There's so little justification for their existence. Why can't we simply go back to a situation where if you want to claim self-defense, you just use it as a defense. You shoot as a last option. That if you can't escape, if there's no other choice, that's when you're allowed to shoot. Otherwise, you go to jail for a long time. This seems to be the easiest system. This is the system that we had in the Bible. This is the system that we had back in the caves. This is the system that Cro-Magnon man used and the Australopithecus. This is the system that the Neanderthals used. If it was good enough for them, why isn't it good enough for us? Why do we need these expanded rights that, well, if you reasonably thought they were doing something, you can shoot them? Or even if you could get away, you should still shoot them just in case. Even if you could just walk 2 steps to the left and be fine. No, just go ahead and shoot them. This is no longer self-defense, and I tell people this all the time. This is public offense. This is an offensive weapon. Stand your ground is a weapon of offense. Is not in the self-defense category. Defense means your back is against the wall. There is nowhere to go. The walls are closing in around you. This assailant is walking up to you, and they have one thing on their mind, which is to take you out, to hurt you, to injure you in some way. And because of that, you're left with the life or death decision to pull a trigger to save your life or risk you losing your life. That is self-defense. That has worked for the entirety of human history. But now we have changed it to, well, I could get away or I could shoot you. You know, I'm sitting in a car that's turned on and gassed up. And I could just back up and both of us would still be alive. You would be alive, I would be alive, and I'd be gone. No. I'm just going to go ahead and shoot. And this is the problem with stand your ground. So I'm going to get back down off my soapbox. I want you to check out that article on AJC.com and in the Friday Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Me and attorney Janice Mathis wrote the op-ed, and there's a response by the Georgia Carries General Counsel, I believe. So check that out. Also, we want you to follow us on Facebook. We have hundreds of friends on Facebook, but we want more. Like us, Facebook.com/PresentPolitics. Twitter, we need more Twitter followers at Present Politics. Look at us on our website, www.presentpolitics.com. Follow the conversation throughout the week. This has been an outstanding show. Great to have Daniel Blackman, George Cheedy, Fred Hicks all call into the show. Been outstanding. And always remember, make decisions on the side of love. Everybody, thank you for listening to Present Politics. We will be back next week on Love 860 WAEC. I'm your host, Robert Patillo. You guys have a great weekend.
You've been listening to Present Politics with Rashad Ritchie and Robert Patillo. Join them next Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. as they cover the present politics that affect our local, state, and national communities. For more information, go to presentpolitics.com.